Good evening, Stat 507. This is Herb Schreiber, and doing one of our last assignments, which kind of feels good. As we've been tasked, I'm continuing on with my surveillance investigation and now making a proposal for an intervention study on hearing loss. Today, this morning, we're going to be kind of going through the basic background of it, much like what was in the surveillance survey. Going to add some new risk factors that have kind of indicated where we're going with our new study, and then provide you information on how we're going to attack what they've investigated before to look at new stuff. The new stuff primarily being what used to be low-risk environments may not be as low risk. And that's something that was elucidated, found, implicated in the previous studies. So I've come up with a study design utilizing new technology, basically smartphone. Actually, the CDC finally approved some of that for study, and so we could jump on this bandwagon and hopefully do a little bit of tracking. And even if that doesn't occur, I've got an argument that, as you're going to see in my anticipated outcomes, in the strengths and limitations portion of our little presentation here, you'll see that even if that doesn't work out, there's going to be some very interesting tracking data that hasn't occurred before, because most of the hearing data out there is related to someone that already has a hearing. Who has the hearing loss? Folks like me. 60 and over. We're getting there. And so there is a lot of age discrimination in there. But interesting is it's the third most chronic health condition out there. And 24% from estimations, and this is from a 10-year to 20-year survey of folks working in the mining environment, manufacturing environment, have hearing loss. We're clocking 32 million people that have been exposed to hazardous noise that have lost it. Now, 10% on the outside have lost it, and they were not in the hazardous environment. And this is kind of the crux of the study. What we may consider a hazardous environment may actually be in more environments than we expect. Now, how do we figure that out, and how do we protect each other? Well, for now, we understand that primarily a lot of loss is occurred because of loud noises. Hey, you concert goers. Okay, you got the joke. There are autotoxic, there's chemicals, there's other things that do affect hearing loss. If you look over the trend, and this is a very interesting slide, of an individual in the same field, we have a 25-year-old at the top and a 55-year-old at the bottom. Bam! He's lost a third of his hearing frequency. Now, I don't think it's just because he's married. Okay, that was a bad joke. In the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, they found that 50% of hearing losses are in manufacturing. Well, one interesting thing about the studies that were performed, even though they were studied for 10 years, the only industry that is required to provide audio data or to inspect their employees for hearing loss is manufacturing. A lot of other industries don't have quite the regulations. Construction does to some degree. And this is going to be the crux of what I would like to add to it. So as a premier, in the past, they began a study in 2009, and as of 2015, welcome to my fellow Air Force folks, 10 million private audiograms were researched. 18 other data providers provided the data. These audiograms over these 10 years, compared it to the hearing losses provided over those 10 years, and found that, yes, a tremendous amount of folks were losing hearing. 18% of the workers, just between 18 and 65, had hearing loss. The main PRs, or prevalence ratios, were in mining, wood manufacturing, and then let me point this out: construction and real estate. Excuse me, may I show you the pantry? Location. If you look at the prevalence ratio of real estate to mining, they're almost the same, 1.61 to 1.65. So something's going on here. Either people are getting old and losing their hearing, or there's a lot of yelling going on in the real estate business. Okay, or maybe you're in traffic a lot. There's something going on. And so what's the background of my surveillance study, it kind of pushed that what we consider low-risk industries were actually higher. In summary, NIOSH, over these 20 years basically, because there was a study before the last 10-year study, multi-million dollars, yes, we had manufacturing, significant hearing loss. But check the top bullet out: forestry, fishing, hunting. Check the third bullet out: life, physical, and social science occupations. That kind of scares me. As a psychologist, welcome to we're doing stats. I didn't think I was going to lose my hearing. And if I am, why? Is it what I eat? Is it what I listen to? I don't think my lectures are that loud. Architecture and engineering, higher risk for tinnitus. So we have 23% of workers that are exposed had hearing losses. 7% had 7% of the workers that were not in quote unquote, let me repeat this, quote unquote noise environments had hearing losses. And this is where we're going, is what the proposed study will offer is to see what they determine as a noise environment versus a non-noise environment may be inappropriate, because the non-noise environment hasn't necessarily been measured. Hey, I work in an office, it's not loud. Check. That's a non-noise environment. Only 7% of the workers had hearing loss. Wait, they didn't even look at those 7% of workers because they weren't even in the study. So let's just totally eradicate. Maybe 30% of the workers sitting at a desk lost their hearing. And here is the biggest conundrum: is the state, the government set standards, 85 decibels. That's our little center here. That you're not supposed to be exposed to that over a set amount of time. Okay? If you're in that environment for over 8 hours, it's wrong. Well, my office isn't that. My classrooms aren't that loud. But is that really my exposure? And this is where we're going to go with our new study. So, as a repeat, kind of already got into this, the previous studies have only looked at individuals that have hearing loss. They have reported hearing loss. And then they look at the industry that they were in. To me, it should be the other way around. You should look at individuals, see who gets hearing loss, and then, hey, why are you getting loss? So here's the my proposed study objectives. First, and we'll get into I will present this in the next few slides. Based on our technology, our smartphones, we have the capability to make sound measurements that were never been able to made before. With people that we couldn't do that. Most of the devices that I looked at were over $1,000. I'm not going to put one on and wear it around all day. Two, the researchers aren't going to spend that for everyone. But now a lot of people have cell phones. So here's my proposal. I would like to utilize what we already carry in our pocket and is becoming quite a trend, the Fitbit, the Adidas, the Nike shoe that measure your pace counts. There are many apps out there that do assess the amount of decibels we're hearing in our lives. Okay, so we'll take those and we could document that on people that don't have hearing loss and then touch them in their future. Take a 20-year-old, 10 years from now, see what they are, see what their hearing is. Are they real estate? Are they a bicyclist? Are they a rock star? And then look to change. So the proposed study is it's community based. The only way it's going to sell. You're going to have to go to stakeholders in the farming industry. We already have you already have compliance issues or regulations with major manufacturing plants. But in this proposed study, we're going to move beyond that and capture a part of the working society, such as the fruit picker, someone out picking strawberries. One day there's a tractor going by. Another day there's a bird going by. I'm going to try to utilize the population that's carrying cell phones in order to grab data that cannot be affordably grabbed before. So the key to this, broad collection, utilize primary care physicians, not auditory. So most of the folks don't have a hearing problem yet. And the purpose of the study is to make sure they don't. And that's where smartphone apps can be provided. They can be automatically programmed to download the data on a nightly basis. The exposure levels for the study have already been determined by the NIOSH, National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, as anything over 85 decibels. But it's kind of the purpose of this study is to see if that's actually the best settings. So hopefully we're going to gather some real-time data on people that are in the workplace that we didn't expect exposure levels, and then track them out many years, not gathering the auditory data, but actually gathering their hearing loss to see if it is actually linked to the amount of sound they hear during their life. So, fortunately, the CDC has already been checking into some of this stuff, and they found some apps out there that work really well, that are up to industry standards. So we already have things we could load on a cell phone for 99 cents. My proposal is to HMOs, workforce, community, to pull in community stakeholders and provide apps for cell phone holders or smartphone holders that are willing to get an audiogram to set the baseline, collect data, and the app will be designed to collect data at a random basis throughout the workday to look at noise profiles and to collect the history of that profile, automatically download so the individual doesn't have to participate in that. Surveys will be occurred once a year, and an audiogram will be made once a year so that we get their take on, hey, I did this many concerts, I did this, much like all the other studies that have been done. But the big difference is going to be we're looking at people that haven't had hearing loss yet. And if they do develop hearing loss, to compare it to. So my anticipated outcomes, got to wrap this up real quick, is we're going to gather some audio data we haven't had, but two, we're going to actually survey people that don't have hearing loss yet and see when and if they loss. And that is the study strength, is that we're going to see that immediately. And even if the data collection isn't good enough from the dosimetry point of view, the actual audiograms for every year on people that haven't had hearing loss yet will be. So the rest, you could take your leisure, wrap this up, and tell you good night. So what's going on with the basics of hearing? Got sound waves coming in the auditory channel here, knock a little tympanic membrane and some stirrups, and down here, that little beastie boy is where all the action occurs. Let's jump ahead because this is an anatomy course. But these little cilia, these green things down at the bottom of your screen, are inside the cochlea, which is wrapped around. And here's the crazy thing. When noise, age, chemicals hit this cochlea, this is the nice healthy one on your left. On the right, you see all the little hairs are gone. Those little beastie boys on the age of the individuals. You could see here's an initial put at their data. It's robust. It's parsed out across different regions, ages, sex, races. It's how did I put it? Robust. Again, they were shredding out by industries with the numbers and over time. Past studies at OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health, had regulations that said don't work in an environment without hearing protection or some sort of mitigation to prevent the noise from hurting your hearing. There was no age corrections on the previous studies, which is kind of interesting. Well, the ones I looked at anyway. But most of the major studies were survey data. Hey, can you hear? Which is fraught with a lot of bias and confounds. And this is, I think, why the new press from the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health was to begin this surveillance study that really became a seminal study and still is. And that's going to be the point of this, the rest of this presentation. If you notice, current regulations say you can only have a time-weighted average. It's supposed to be under 84 dB of 8 hours. Now, I don't know who's out there measuring the whole thing, and this is one of my points that